I think it really has become quite apparent at this point in time involving Steven Spielberg that he really is defending this movie through and through to really make it a success, to get as many people into the theater seats as possible, because let's not forget about this too, that he is the executive producer of Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny. He may not have written this movie, he may not have wanted to partake in the script, but he did executive produce this thing. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. And let's get into exactly what's happening with Steven Spielberg. Now, we know that Spielberg has been very inconsistent. There's times where it almost sounds like he's against this movie and Kathleen Kennedy and her nature of filmmaking, but also there's other times where he desperately tries to defend this film and really tries to save the film's box office results. So I'm not quite sure exactly what side he's on, but obviously I'm more lenient toward the fact that he really is a true fan of what Disney has done with Star Wars and now with Indiana Jones. There's no doubt about this. He may not like specific things about the film, and we've talked about that before in the past, about he and Mangold having a little bit of creative differences, but let's move on to what's really going on here. Now, given that Steven Spielberg, right, is somebody that did try to have Mangold do something very different with this film to really kind of deliver something that would mark it as the final movie involving Harrison Ford's portrayal of the character and more. What's interesting here, however, is that with Steven Spielberg heavily promoting Indy 5 in a desperate attempt to bring fans into the theaters, just 2 days before its release, he recently didn't have the greatest things to say about fans that remain skeptical about the film and do not support of what Kathy and James are doing. Spielberg stated the following: "I just think these people that call themselves fans and have such an issue with a female lead need to sit back and relax. Look, cinema is cinema. It's all mostly fictional anyways, and there should be no concern over a female lead in an Indiana Jones film. People like that are not fans, like James pointed out before. These are just individuals wanting us to not succeed with a film that really empowers women and caters to diversity to really increase what should be the norm nowadays in the film industry that we're still struggling with. And what better way to kickstart that further with an indie movie? Any fan that's against that clearly doesn't know what the indie franchise is all about." Guys, let me stop here quick before I get to the next piece. So if we don't like agenda-driven, diversity or female empowerment in a movie like Indiana Jones or Star Wars or whatever it may be, then we have no idea what we're talking about, according to Spielberg. Now, this is like a copy and paste thing that a lot of these creators, a lot of these producers tend to say that make these kind of creations that do not cater to the true hardcore audience, the true fans, right? And it's just upsetting to see that Spielberg, unfortunately, seems at this point is a has-been. He hasn't really been making great material for a very long time. Make no mistake, guys, he was involved in the Halo TV series, which, by the way, bombed on TV. It was horrible. The ratings were spiraling out of control downwards. And so Spielberg has that attached to him, and he's dragging a lot of other projects along with him as well that have failed constantly. Now, yes, he may have had quite a number of successes in the past. Who could forget about things out there like Jaws, or anything like Raiders of the Lost Ark, for example. All of these hits you can't forget about. E.T., another prime example. But along the way, he really lost his touch, I feel. I don't know about you guys, but I feel that is the case. Now, moving to the next thing here, he goes on to elaborate further. As creators and producers, we grow exhausted of hearing these people that claim to be fans of what they want to see on the big screen, and that's one thing I agree with Kathy about, is that it's best to filter out the fans' voices when you are creating a major blockbuster, and this exactly is what James did. He tried his best to not look too hard into social media about the skepticism from the community of Indiana Jones. Another false thing, guys, if you guys have been following James Mangold on Twitter, you will realize that he's called people that are against Indy 5 man babies and basement dwellers, very much like what Phoebe Waller-Bridge called the fans of Indiana Jones and Star Wars, who actually did not like the Han Solo film with her droid L-337. She no longer, of course, could stand the fans to the point where she has to call them man babies and stuff like that. Rian Johnson did the same exact thing with The Last Jedi. I mean, this is what they resort to, and I think that this Twitterverse, whatever you want to call it, when celebrities are on there and they say these things, they really come across as nothing better than your ordinary person online. You know, that's the true tragedy about celebrities nowadays, especially actors, actresses, producers, writers, and directors that really engage too much on social media to the point I feel that it ruins their image. So, like I say, Spielberg is putting it out there that he is 100% in agreement with Kathleen Kennedy about filtering out the fans, what they want to see in an indie movie or a Star Wars film, whatever have you, and that we are wrong if we have a lot of skepticism over forced agendas. Now look, guys, I'm all for diversity, I'm all for female empowerment, but it has to come naturally, and it's not a new thing. Let's be honest, this has been around forever. And I know I've pointed this out several times, but I'll point it out again. Have we all forgotten about Sarah Connor, Ellen Ripley, all these, powerful figures, even Wonder Woman? Have we forgotten all about that? What about, Xena? What about other characters out there? It seems like that it is just a false narrative on their end to point fingers and say, you're a misogynist if you don't like this, this, or that. So, moving toward the tail end of this, alright, he goes on to conclude further, because quite frankly, it's disrespectful, he says. I may not fully support the ending of this film incomplete, but this film is a true masterpiece by Mr. Mangold. See the movie and let your opinion speak for yourself after. That's the way to go. Now, again, he says that he's very much disgraced over the fact that this is the way fans are acting, and meanwhile, it's not that we're acting in a certain way, we're just raising our concerns and showcasing our passion for Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and even now the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I feel is going in a very dark path. And we've talked about this, surprise, surprise, Kathleen Kennedy does have a little bit of a hand in that. We're going to be talking about that later in the week. She does have a lot of influence over Kevin Feige. She's a very good friend of him. And most recently, she has been telling him to do this and that in the MCU. And I believe that's why you're seeing this big shift in low-quality content coming out. But moving toward the next thing here about Spielberg is that I almost feel like I'm the Batman of 2022 when he talks to Gordon, where he says, "Really? You too now?" That's how I feel with Spielberg. And it's sad to see somebody as iconic as George Lucas, almost of the same exact status, saying such things toward the fans, that you have to filter them out, that you can't listen to them if you want to create a good piece of cinema, and stuff like that, and that we don't know what we're talking about, or we're not fans if we have an issue with these forced agendas. They don't like to call it a forced agenda, by the way. They just like to call it, what should be the norm in the film industry. So, anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. And I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.